LLC, and today I will introduce my product, personalized AI agent, rentanagent.ai. So your current AI agent knows a lot about you. It knows your email, your contacts, and maybe even your credit card number or the name of your therapist. And all these data are somewhere on somebody's server. So what I want to show you today is how to run an agent in a Docker. So what I created here, it's an open source. You can download it, you run it, you configure it, and then you plug in an LLM. For example, if you plug in Olama, then of course all the data stays with you. So there is no password, there is no email which you have to type in. You will see, you just get with the solution a 48 character token, and then the SHA 256 will convert that into your agent ID. So I have 4 layers here. You have a soul MD, which defines the persona of your agent. Then I have the pluggable LLM brain, and then the memory is a plain text file, and then with an API bridge, you can access skill and run those skills. So right now here, if I go to create a new agent, you see you can choose the soul. Now, right now I just stay with the compagnon. Now you type in a name. I'm happy that my wife is here too, so I name the agent Alex. And then you can tell the agent, for example, that I live in Austin. And of course, this goes in the microphone. Oh. All right, thanks, yeah. Thanks. Welcome. So now we create the agent. And now let me scroll here. So here you have a token, that's the 48 character token. You better copy this token, you store it well, because if you lose the token, then of course your agent is lost too, because then you have no access to go back. So now we start chatting, and I think I don't have to explain this audience, how to chat, but now I just put in, for example, I live in Austin, and now I just add, I develop. Okay. And now, of course, there's always the dialogue. So I say, help me with GTM. And then it just proposes a few things. So what I did additionally, next to put that on the Docker, which I'm pretty sure a lot of people are doing, what I added here is also the ability to pay with lightning payments, so micro payments. Now, if you would use it, you wouldn't use that, but just think about, this is a Docker solution, and if you want to place that at a customer's place, let's say he has 50 people, that's a way how, let's say, a customer could really then define that, let's say, their employees, they have a budget, and he pretty much gives that to them on a monthly basis. Maybe one person has $50 budget, the other one only 20. So every time when you create an agent, you get the token, and to the token is then a Lightning wallet if you want to go this path. And the way how it works, and I don't want to spend too much time, but now I could scan the code. After a few seconds, we know lightning payments are settled within seconds, then right away you can access that. Now, I wouldn't do that, let's say, if I just use it for myself, but as I mentioned, when there are companies, this helps them. And additionally, if you see here a button, so next to my personal agent, I also have a marketplace. So the agent is combined, so you can pull in the skills from my marketplace into your personal agent. Also here, there's a Lightning payment behind it. So my original idea when I really started with the skill marketplace was that everybody who runs a skill will pay the creator, the skill creator, a little bit money, until I noticed that then I'm a money transmitter. So I had to back up from this idea. Now the skills are free, but it just shows the idea, what's possible, especially if you include Lightning payments. So overall, it's very easy, very simple. I didn't go with any database. As I mentioned at the beginning, there are pretty much 4 files. So there's the soul file, an identity, then there's the memory, and then you have an active skill, which is pretty much, you track in there all the skills which you get from the marketplace. All right, I think that's pretty much what I had. Any questions, feedback?
If you have a question, just let me know.
Yeah, what was the, oh, there we go. Yeah, what was the money issue that you ran into for accepting payments?
The problem?
Yeah, you said you were gonna like actually sell skills, but like you ran into some issue with taking payments?
Yes, so let's say my first idea was, I have the skill, and let's say you pay for a skill 100 sats, which is approximately 7 cents. So my idea, if you pay the 7 cents, and let's say you run the skill, you pay the 7 cents, you pay it to me. And my objective was whoever created the skill earns the money. So that's when I suddenly become a money transmitter. And then, of course, I stopped because I read through what it means. You have a lot of compliance issue. You need to have a lawyer, $10,000s a year you have to think about. So it was pretty much, this was, let's say, something I experienced throughout my journey, and which I just want to share here, suddenly something pops up where you say, oh, I didn't think about that, and then I had to a little bit change my architecture.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? If not, let's give a round of applause. Thank you. Want to go next?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Just do a brief intro of yourself.
Yeah. Testing. Yeah, why not? Yeah, it came out today. I was like, why don't I do it? So it may go a little slower, but we'll see. I use Sonnet most of the time because it's fast, but I was like, why not? All right, so my name is Jonathan Malkin, and this is Jules, all right? So I gave my AI a personality, right? And out of all the things that I've done, the most beneficial, aside from all the automated things and generating reports and all that kind of stuff, is actually figuring out how to work as a collaborator or have it work with me as a collaborator to think and make decisions and then to write and publish articles, right? And there's all kinds of things inherent in LLMs that make that a problem, right? It gets stuck on the first or last thing that's said in a conversation. It's sycophantic, right? So you actually have to build in, argue with me, find problems, listen to my thoughts before your own so you don't get anchored on nonsense, that kind of stuff. So let's take a look at how that goes here. All right. All right, Jules, so I'm up here doing a demo, and I think we should figure out, maybe you could help me think through what comes next. We've been working on the memory system and Hermes, and maybe we could sort out exactly what to work on tomorrow. So using Super Whisper for dictation, and now it's routing it. It's going to talk in a second.
Let's think. I'd like to know more. My guess is you want to push on morning and the proposal flow tomorrow. Am I close, or is something else pulling harder?
Did that come through well? Okay, cool. I'll dial it up a little bit too. It's not? I don't know, hold the microphone to it. Well, we'll try on the next one. I turned it up even more. All right. So what you can see here is I've actually built tags into the workflow that I spec'd out so that it starts off by routing to the right mode that I want to go to, or the right workflow. So thinking in this case, helping me to think. It always starts by eliciting my ideas before it offers any of its own, and it will go through a whole process of arguing before giving its own ideas, right? So I could continue along here and say, what it is? Yeah, really, I'd like to get Hermes really solid before we start multiplying it and doing multiple agent systems. So I'm thinking that's the direction to go. Then it starts to apply frameworks to it. So
Question, what would make Hermes not solid enough to multiply? And a push, solid before multiplying, can be infrastructure pull in disguise. What's the one signal that tells you it's ready?
Probably didn't even need the microphone for that, right? It's pretty loud. Cool. So you can see it's pulling in frameworks like inversion in this way, where it inverted the problem, or rationalization, trying to figure out, hey, do I already have an answer in mind, and I'm just trying to get it to tell me, confirm what I already said. And so it's got 17 plus different mental models that it can go through to actually push back and challenge me with questions. Right? So yeah, so we could go on like this. And I've done dialogues with Jules for half an hour to talk through something and come back to it later for another half hour. Any kind of life or business decisions, it's helpful. But let's go on to having it write. Right? So hey, let's go ahead and write up that article on the Honcho memory system. And again, the first thing it's going to do is elicit.
Switching to write mode. I'd like to know more. Give me your raw take on the Honcho memory system, what clicked, and any moment only you could tell.
Yeah, again, so it's going to anchor to the first and last thing in a conversation, typically. And so, again, it's going to ask me to spell out my ideas. And this is usually where I talk for 5 or 10 minutes about everything I'm thinking on the top of my head. And so in this case, I'll just say, hey, yeah, so for Honcho, we've got that deployed out on top of Hermes and Claude Code, and we've figured out the issues and rebuilt the database and all those things. So I think it's just a matter of solidifying it, seeing what goes in and out on a daily basis. Yeah. And similar to the think, it's going to push back on me. And this is fun.
Is at 44 out of 50, above threshold. One fact check. Did you fully rebuild the Honcho database, or was it a schema reset on the existing one?
So a couple other issues with the LLMs. They will do a lot of the same AI slop that people call it, right? The same kind of punctuation and words and things like that. So I put the stop slop skill in there, and it actually ranks on a half dozen factors of, is the text actually doing some of those things? And it'll give you a score out of 50, all right? And then I built in, and I'll have it iterate through and revise the draft until it gets above a 42. And in most cases, it takes like 2 or 3 iterations to do that. So it'll actually go through and do that ranking. It'll spawn off 2 subagents to do reviews and then synthesize all that. And each time I look at it, edit it, and then run it back through. And another big thing that I ran into a lot of problems with was it just makes up stories about me. So it'll start writing an article and say, yeah, it's writing in my voice. It gets samples of my writing. So every conversation, it finds the best samples for the type of writing that we're doing and injects them in there before it does the draft. But still, it'll come back and say, yeah, so I was up at 1 a.m. the other night, and I'm like, yeah, I do that, but like you're making up stuff. So I make sure that it puts tags in where it needs something, and even better, in the dialogue as we're working through it, it'll ask me for anecdotes and stories and whatever needs to be in there. And typically what I end up doing is writing the first 1 or 2 paragraphs, or dictating it basically, and then writing the last paragraph. And then the rest of it is usually a pretty meaty, like 5,000 word technical article. So it works out pretty well for me. So a little behind the scenes, get this up on screen. There we go. So the think and write workflows are basically just 3 files for each one. So starting off with, in Claude, there's a whole routing mechanism that you saw where it routes it off to either quick, debug, research, or think. And then from think, it could go to building or writing. So building is typically technical artifacts like code and apps and things. And writing's more the articles like we looked at today. Or it could go back and do some more research. And I've got a whole file of cognitive patterns for Jules. So that it has a bunch of principles in here. So when it's doing thinking, it has a whole series of principles that it follows. And for even more detail for the actual workflow that it goes through, there's this whole process of about 10 or 12 steps. And this step here happens to be where it's applying one of the frameworks. And I have a whole file full of 12 lenses, 17 operations, and 5 recipes. Like a bunch of different ways for it to break down depending on what it is that we're brainstorming, and push back on me in different ways. And it usually picks about 2 or 3 is what I instruct it to do. All right. So yeah, so that's Jules. And the next evolution of this is going to be going on to move this from Claude Code, where it is today, to Hermes, and then start firing up a whole organization full of them. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions?
Live stream mic check. When you said that it evaluates the AI slop, did you give it heuristics to run through to check and then do the calculus on it? Or when it gives you the answer 44 out of 50, it's like LLM-based response? In other words, do you say, here's the criteria, calculate how many of these things you got in the text, or is it just like, how do you do the anti-slop evaluation?
It's both. So there's 5 factors. Each one gets ranked out of 10 by the LLM. And it's looking for like punctuation and certain words and fillers and certain structures. There's a script as well that goes along with it that can deterministically figure out some things. That's actually a core principle of the personality of Jules, is to be deterministic wherever possible. So I'm always pushing it to like write scripts for stuff. But that's actually one I downloaded, that stop slop. So I kind of went along with how that was. And I've gone back and forth on how deterministic to make them. Mm-hmm. I think the one you saw today was all LLM judging for that particular one.
So somebody made the plugin like stop slop, or like some.
Yeah, they made the skill.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I adapted it. So I advise others the same as what I do, which is anytime you come across a good idea, you throw the URL into whatever your favorite agent is and tell it, hey, what can you learn from this? And then how would this work in our system? And at this point, I've built things out so much that like 80% of the time it's like, you're good. And the other 20%, it's like, oh, all right, we could really do something.
I just wanted to tell you, like, I've had a project, I guess it was 2 years ago, so the LLMs were worse, but they're like horrible at counting stuff. So you might want it to actually do the evaluation and then, save it to a file, then do calculus in Python or whatever, and then give you an answer. Yeah, because it's really hard to catch, because it will like confidently be like, yeah, 44, and you're like, yeah, that sounds good, right? And then under the hood, you like have no idea. But that's why I was wondering if it's trying to do the calculations. Yeah.
There is a script that goes to it. I just don't. I tinker with it so much, I don't remember if it's hooked up at the moment or not. Okay. But yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I have a question actually. So my question is, I saw that you have thinking disabled for the model itself, and you have a cognitive pattern, a proper routing mechanism. Like, what is the motivation behind this instead of like using the default reasoning from the model itself? Yeah.
Mostly it's because I'm doing a demo and I just want it to go faster, right? So if I turn on thinking, who knows how long it'll take. I already put it on extra high, like Opus from release today, so that's already enough. Usually I do have thinking turned on. But that said, I find generally for all things, including these workflows, I find the iterative dialogue to be way more useful than it thinking, right? I find iterations to be way better. So like the fact that it goes through a whole process of farming out subagents for reviews and doing the stop-stop skill, and like the fact that I continuously provide feedback is steering it as well. So I find the iterations are way better than coming back 10 minutes later to doing a bunch of thinking. If you're doing something very technical, like building code, having it take 10 or 20 minutes and like build out detailed plans is really good, because it needs to think through all these little tiny details of things. But for the more creative work, the back and forth is way better.
Sounds great. Any other questions?
I love what you did. I think it's a brilliant thing. Quick question: what kind of limitations are you running into? Is there something you're really missing?
So for these particular workflows, I think limitation-wise, it's dealing with all the new models, right? So they all have their own quirks and ways of working, and so I rebuild. This is like it's like the third major rebuild from scratch that I'm working on right now to move it over to Hermes, and even just the Opus 4.7 that came out today. Like I didn't get a choice; they just upgraded to it. So if I want to use Opus, it's the new one, right? So keeping up with that is the biggest thing. I've put in like tons of configuration and then stripped out lots of it. I've set up servers for this. I had to run in 24/7. Then Anthropic released features, took the whole thing down. And I actually need to do another pass on these workflows as I adapt them into Hermes, because I was looking at them and preparing for this demo, and they're pretty complicated, and I think the models now are actually could go with a much simpler process and do just as well. Maybe even better.
Any other questions? If not, give a round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mic check. You guys, if I'm yelling too much, just wave at me and stop me. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna open. I'm gonna start here. Or not. Screw it. There is a website. The website is postal.wtf if you want to check it out later. But let me tell you what I'm doing. This is another personal agent. But there's more to it. So the reason I'm doing this is because I realized that I don't remember a lot of stuff, but I usually recall stuff. I would think of like, oh, I know this, you know, but then I'm like, I know kind of like the path to get to the information, but not the actual information. So I needed an agent that will find all of this for me without me actually having to figure it out for hours. So I can put stuff into Postal like, the barista at this coffee shop is named Ryan, you know, and then next time I walk into that coffee shop, I'll be like, oh my God, what's the guy's name? And I'll get Ryan's name without actually knowing Ryan's name. And then I needed that for the rest of my life because, well, I'm very disorganized and I don't have calendar events because I'll miss them all. And I needed an agent to be like, you got to do stuff. So it's a little bit ahead of its time. It's Friday, April 15th there. But fun fact, turns out don't use UTC time zones, just use your local and don't worry about it. So anyways, I might take all 15 minutes. Let's see, I'm going to talk for 5 minutes, and then if you guys have questions, let's go into that so we can do the technical part. But Postal is essentially entirely built by me, for me. It's using Grok as a backend right now, just to be fast, but really it can take on local models. I've got a NVIDIA Spark at home, so I wanted to like run local models and do stuff. It's just really damn slow if you do local models. And like somebody in the audience said, you know, you can't load all of your thinking into like a local model and expect a good result right away. It will come in like 3 hours. So for now, it's running off Grok. And it's running off Grok, like the 420 beta that's multi-agent. In fact, it's got tiered agents inside of it. So I actually got the thing to tell me what I need to talk about. All right, okay. Let's look into this. I'll just wing it, you know. So, okay, so this thing loads every day. Every time I open Postal, it just loads this information, has access to my calendar, my email, and all of the tasks that I create. And I create them by literally saying, you know, like, remind me to thank my wife for taking kids camping. And then it will go on, oh, no species detected, great. I'm plugged into this system, sorry. Anyways, if it works, it will save this as a note in my own memory. And the key here, it uses local file storage, essentially documents, to store all of the information. So it's portable, it's shareable. I can in fact create multiple of these workspaces by just sharing the folder on Dropbox. And then I have access to it, my wife would have access, we can like do it together. It can store everything from a bunch of my notes. So I've imported 1,200 Apple Notes into here with one click, and it's got access to everything. You know, it uses all of this while thinking of an answer for me. It has access to the calendar. You know, it has separate tasks that it obviously like organizes for me. Not shown, it has an ability to watch stuff. So for example, I can give it a URL to the Starbase launch site and say, hey, notify me when they actually update the date with the Starship flight. And like every day, be like, oh, no date, no date, no date. And then they update it at some point, that's why I deleted it. But they'll be like, boom, you know, you've got information waiting for you. So it's designed around like whatever I needed to do. And so I push like 6 versions a day to this thing because every day I think of a new thing that it needs to do for me. And it's very much me-centric right now. And I'm trying to figure out a good balance between like, how do I make this into something all of you would want, where it's both flexible and rigid, because you know, I have a lot of control over how this thing thinks. So let's talk real quick about how it thinks. I essentially had to like recreate Claude to an extent. And if you haven't tried, it's a pain. Because what you gotta tell an agent, do you want me to open code? Yeah. It has like multiple tiers of thinking. First, when you send a message to the agent, it will think of like, okay, what do you want me to do? Oh, you want me to, you know, create a task. And then it has a set of actions, like, am I allowed to create a task? And then it will create a task, go make that, and then it has a loop running where it'll be like, okay, well, wait for the task to complete, and then go notify the user that the task is complete. And you can see that, let me see, over here, like when it completes the loop, let me zoom in. I've lost it completely, but here's another example, right? So it will tell you that it searched for emails and it created a draft. It's the task that it's allowed to do in my Gmail, and that's hard-coded in settings. And then the agent will have reasons why it did something, so I can review that information, so I kind of always know what it's doing with all my files. I mean, this was about 2 months of me struggling with this application. And the reason I'm saying struggling, because it's built on Tauri, which is like a Rust backend, well, the infrastructure, but there's a bunch of JavaScript inside of it. And I started with a simple idea of like, let me just, maintain my tasks. It was literally just like, here's 6 projects, here's 6 tasks, and the agent was maintaining them. And I was like, well, that's cool, but now I need to do that on the go, which means I need a mobile app. And then when you have mobile app and files on your local desktop, you're like, well, I need sync. You start doing sync. It's a pain because you're like, well, what happens if I logged in on the mobile, edit something, logged out, and then open it on the desktop, that information, and it's like everyday iterative process like this, but it gets more and more. And it gets to the point where the agent now has a sandbox inside the application where it can actually write JavaScript code. So I can tell it to be like, hey, go, we can try here. So let's see if it works, but I'm basically asking it to go look up my newsletters. Oops, that was fun. And summarize it to one paragraph so I don't have to read them. I've done that a few days before where I was like, hey, can you actually go through 100 of them and tell me which 3 I actually want to read based on what I've been researching lately. And, research, like I can ask it to research something. What's the name of the memory framework? Hancho. All right, so like it's gonna go research Hancho, but there you go. It went from my Gmail and found some newsletters, kind of missed this whole, I need just one paragraph, but summarize it to, I guess, The Hustle by The Highlight. That's the one I should check out today. And I get it to do this kind of stuff, and then I just say, okay, trash the rest of the newsletters. I don't want to read them. Because there's just so much information now, you can't keep up with everything. And the idea is that this agent will do like anything I want it to do. So early on, I was trying to see who I want to connect for maybe investment/advice on this. And I remember that I have some emails with the CTO from Slack from like a while back. And so I said, hey, can you go find Cal and, let me see if I can find this for you guys. And I was like, can you find his email and then just draft something for him? Here. Why don't we just simplify this? And I say, there. Let me see if this finds it. Well, there's another bug. It didn't land in the right place in chat. But basically, we'll just go through my Gmail, find that information. Like it found it for Brian for me, and it uses like my memories, public information, X, whatever it can search. And it's all designed in such a way where it can do that locally when the compute locally is actually fast enough to do that. So I can just switch it. And then, but even then, I'm using Grok. If I try to flip it to OpenAI right now, it's going to run into a bunch of issues. Issues with tool calling, the way it responds, its personality. Like I said, I'm building this like literally with whatever I feel like it should exist. So it has different styles and how annoying it can be. So proactive means every hour it's going to be like, you haven't done this, you haven't done this, you haven't done this. It really works well for me because it's annoying, but it knows, so it's part of its loop, it knows to actually help me. So at some point it was like, you haven't done this, but I wrote a document for you explaining how to do it. And I'm like, I was done with it. And it feels so good when like the agent gave you the information, you didn't have to go ask for it. And then I also gave it, personalities, where it could be like kind of like if it writes an email, it's now an actual email I would send. Like, did we ask it to write an email? I forgot. No, we didn't. But it will create a draft in Gmail, and then I can go and review. I still review it instead of just sending, because sometimes it will put some stupid stuff in there. But I gave it inside Gmail, in the memory, I gave it a bunch of personalities. Like it could be JSON YAML or serve on postal and that kind of stuff. And it's just like so much fun when you can get the agent to do whatever you want to do. So if you guys have questions about how it's built, let me know. I'm all over the place, I know, but go on.
Thanks for sharing. That's really cool. I wanted to understand so you know how it does these reminders, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, do you run these jobs in the background every hour, or like, how do you trigger these agentic loops to run in the background in a separate daemon or something?
Yeah. So the beauty of like Towery is that it's essentially just the application powered by data. So like, there's no backend, right? But if it's open, thus the personalities and how often I want it to remind me, it will check if it's. It has a log of when it reminded me last time, and so every time it's open, like once in a while, we'll check that log and be like, "Ooh, it's time to remind him again." And also, it has access. It's not only writing its own functions if it needs to. That's why I was going to say, like, when it sends emails, if I say like do 10 of something, it will just write an internal function. It will try once to send an email and then like do it 10 times. So I don't have to write this into an agent. It will just figure it out. It also has access to its own logs. So if something fails, it knows, it has a skill to essentially go and look through the logs and fix it before it will try to fail. Because when it fails, there will be like a little red cross just telling me like here, I was not connected to Gmail at that time. And it was like, oh, search failed, you have to reconnect. And so, short answer to your question is yes, it's running all these thinking loops periodically, trying to help me so that I can do less. And like I mentioned before, it will actually, like if I created a task and I haven't done it, it's instructed to go and see if it can figure out how to do the task, which is still iffy because sometimes it will give me like a generic, like, I have a task, return clothes for the girls, i.e. like I need to physically just go to postal office, right? And it just like invented ideas for me to how to return clothes. Like I'm still fine tuning that part, but yes, yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, I have one. So you mentioned this is a mobile app, right? Mm-hmm. So when you're running this as a mobile app, what are the like major challenges that you face? Because as a desktop application, it's kind of easy to hook it into like local agentic workflows, or like you have this always on loops. But mobile, sometimes it might like take up more resources. It's kind of challenging to do this process, right? Yeah.
Yeah, the hard part is designing to make sure it works in both ecosystems. I also have it built for Linux because I have a Spark, and so I tested on Linux as well. And I haven't written a line of code in probably a year and a half at this point. So the hard part is actually in maintaining my context window, trying to figure out what we've been doing and instructing the agent correctly to fix those bugs. And very often, like I have to think, like the agent, something will fail. And then the agent just has no idea what happens. And then it's on me to go like, yesterday we changed this. Can you review those logs on Git? And then we'll try to compare and be like, oh, of course we screwed up this and that. And so the difference in mobile is that first I really wanted to make it like private. It's just on your laptop, right? But just files. But then if I want to sync to mobile, I connected Supabase to it so that it actually can sync that information somewhere. I mean, it's still pretty secure, but now you can't use mobile without an account because you don't have your files. I could theoretically load it all into your browser, but that was more of a pain than connecting Supabase and just syncing. And then stuff like when I was trying to do the voice and it didn't hear me because the AV system, right now it's using Grok for voice. Locally on desktop, it can also use a local model. It's already built in, it will do that. On mobile, it can't do that because that local model is too heavy. It won't load on mobile. And there's a million little things like that. Or sync issues, right? If I have both open, like I had to build a whole syncing engine because if I change something here and on mobile, then it runs into all kinds of sync issues. Because on the desktop, it treats local data as source of truth, or it used to until I was like, you know what? Let's just stick to Supabase as a source of truth and then reconcile information. So there's a ton of learning going on in the last 2 months, just like trying to power through this. But it's getting to the point where I can like add new skills and just say, hey, like log into my Twitter X and figure out what the top 20 responders to my posts are saying and summarize it, and like be able to add as much of that. Context pollution is going to be a problem, and that's like something I have to fix.
Yeah, no, my main concern with mobile is even if you run the whole thing in browser, right? Even with like, let's say sync is figured out, that's a whole another discussion. But let's say that is figured out. How are you because this is a notification system, right? It'll plug into Android or like Apple ecosystem of whatever notifications. But I noticed like I did the same thing with one of my mobile apps, and it like the battery life went to like crap immediately.
So part of the solution is you set up a remote server, like I have a Hetzner instance and a Firebase function, and different processes runs through both. But like your mobile app will go send the request, it will get processed, then it will get pushed back. If your app goes to sleep, because it's not native app, it's just a web app, right? If it goes to sleep, it causes all kinds of issues because you can't wake it up. Then you have to reconcile what happens after the fact when you woke up the app, right? So it gets that information, it will pull the information, but like this is a custom built app, so there's no like framework to rely on. So Claude and I build all the frameworks, but yeah, it's not trivial, but also like it's just more engineering, it's just more time.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? If not, give a round of applause. Thank you very much.
Now it is. All right. Hey everybody, my name is Matt. I guess I've been writing software long enough to actually be a gray beard now, at least a patchy gray beard. But I've done a bunch of stuff, started some startups, worked at Tesla for a while, and like probably all of y'all got obsessed with the idea of jumping into being on the forefront of AI maybe about 2 years ago. And somewhere in that time, I figured out what I thought was like the nugget that I became completely obsessed about, and that's what I've been building. And lo and behold, I think if anyone's on X and like following the common conversation, you're going to see this and be like, okay, the nugget's pretty popular right now. So I'm going to kind of like tell you what I'm going to tell you, and then I'm going to show you, and then we'll kind of recap at the end. But I'm going to bounce around a little bit between showing you the site and some of the documentation and some live code running, and then we'll kind of pop back and see what the code is doing as it goes. But yeah, I'm going to show you GitKB. And GitKB is a distributed knowledge graph protocol. It is not an app, it is a protocol with a free open source. Download it right now, it's yours. You can have it for free. Won't even make you thank me for it. Binary that is 11 megabytes, runs on your local. You can use it to create data that will help you do agentic coding. That data is yours, totally portable. It's markdown files. But GitKB will take those markdown files and effortlessly turn it into a knowledge graph that is searchable, that will compound over time, making every future use of your agentic harness more confident and more effective. So, all right, let's check it out. Let's just go right here. This is what you get. So it's git-kb. That's the actual binary name, but ta-da, Git just treats everything with git dash after it as a plugin. So you can just do git space kb if you feel like it. But one more time, GitKB is a Git-like distributed knowledge graph protocol with sparse sync and checkout semantics. And so what does that mean? Well, we'll find out what that means by doing stuff. So to use it, you brew install it, and the brew installs over here. Where does it go to the docs? Blah, 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 quick start, brew install. You can do it right now if you want to. But brew install, and then all of a sudden you got this thing called git kb, and you do git kb init, and then git kb init Claude. There's a Claude plugin also that I'm kind of like tweaking, but this works well also. Then you fire up your harness. And we happen to be inside of an OpenClaw, a clone of the OpenClaw repository. So remember, always dangerously skip permissions because git kb makes things safe. So what we're going to do over here, if I can like balance this thing magically, we're going to say we just joined the OpenClaw team. We want to use git kb as our knowledge base. Help me bootstrap it. Okay, so it's just going to rock and roll, and you can kind of watch what it does right there. Over here, we're going to say, we're going to make an app for founders. Let's build an app for founders for taking voice notes. Use git kb. Okay, so the kind of like default skills and prompting built into this initial MVP of git kb is all about pragmatic programming. It's a knowledge base. You can do like marketing, CRM, whatever you want. But the initial skills are to make it help you be a better leader of agentic coding harnesses. And so when you first run it on either of these two use cases, which is the KB is empty, there's no documents, it's going to then say, well, do you have any code? Can I figure out what this KB is going to be all about? And if there is code, it's going to start to analyze your code, and if not, it's going to ask you questions. So over here, it's saying the KB is empty. Actually, I messed up here. I think I just didn't CD into OpenClaw. So we'll just let that rock. Over here, we're just going to tell it, make all the best choices. Okay, so over here, it's asking me, like, I phrased it in a funny way. It wants to know what I'm going to do on the team. So I'm going to say, I'm an engineer, let's go. I'm an engineer, let's bootstrap. And we'll just say, when you're done, also go to GitHub and figure out the most high-profile issue we can create a task for. Okay, so we're just going to kind of like let those rock and roll. We'll see what it does and come check in. But just off the bat, you can see this thing's doing git kb create. It's creating a brief, this project brief, and it's got a slug, which is kind of like a path to navigate to a document. This one's a context document. It's in this path called immutable. This next one's context overwritable with progress, but it's creating these 7 files, and we're going to come back to what those are. Over here, we can see that it's doing the same thing over here for OpenClaw, but let's just go back a little bit, and I know we're not supposed to use slides or sites, but we're kind of covering a lot. So git kb is a knowledge base, blah, 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 blah. It gets you to the point where you can open up a fresh new agent and just say, what's next? And then it's going to use the continually compiled and compounding set of documents and relationships that have accrued from your interaction to be able to run these commands like, okay, go and show the contents of one of your documents, or a board. It can create a Kanban board and look at the statuses, et cetera, and then it can come up and formulate a larger compiled understanding of what all this means, like where you currently sit and what you should be working on. So a couple of things to note about how, and so this is just like talking about how, you know, the more docs you make, the more relationships, and it compiles over time, et cetera, et cetera. Super easy to get rocking and rolling. Let's go see how we are over here. So we have some docs accumulating. You can see this project brief. It's gone and figured out what OpenClaw is. This is a bunch of just like, Claude or whatever your harness is magic and some prompting. But it is accumulating these various different context docs that help it understand at the core, like what is this thing that we're building? Like what's the product vision? What are some architectural decisions that have been made that we need to conform to? Things like that. Over here, you can see that it did git kb commit. Okay, so let's start getting into what it is that we're actually looking at. Why is git kb a Git-like distributed knowledge base? So now that it has committed something, I can start to use some other commands like git kb log, and we can see that there's something that looks like a git log, but it's not a git log. This is separate from your code. So git kb is a commit-based method of creating documentation that can be graph related to one another. But there are some fundamental differences between how git kb works and git works. And to tell you what those are, I'll also tell you why the decisions were made. I think everyone kind of understands that there is a set of practices we've all been through when doing agentic coding. First, you do your one shot, you discover Claude for the first time, or Codex, and you tell it to build 5 features, it does it. You do the 7th feature, it deletes your first 5 features. You're like, this sucks, AI is dumb, and you come back in 2 months. And you're like, okay, well, maybe I should like save some files in my directories. Maybe you discover this thing called like the memory bank pattern, and that gets you further. Now you're in like 30 features. It's amazing. And you're like, okay, well, how do I bring a co-founder onto my new app that I made over the weekend? I can't scale this. Okay, I'll put it into a Git repository. But now all the files are like in each other's way, and it's clobbered. And how do we scale to multiple repositories? So then you start doing MCP integrations to linear or something like that. But all of these are compromises, and there are solutions to all these different things, the distributed nature, the sharing aspect. But there's no single tool that solved all these things yet. And so GitKB is basically taking different aspects of Git and repackaging them in a different way. And the main aspects that are different is that there is a single branch, because knowledge is never forgotten, it just fades into the past. And so as new nodes get attached, new documents with new relationships, those stay kind of in the forefront of the context, and explorations that bore no fruit just kind of fade. That's a fundamental difference between some kind of competing or similar tools. And then the next thing is sparse sync. Imagine you're using a Git repository to do this. Imagine you're making a solution where your team has a semantic pull request, where every time you make a pull request, a little agent spins up inside of a GitHub action runner, and it's not asserting that your code is like linted well, it's asserting that the task is effectively solved and that the acceptance criteria have been solved by the code. Should that GitHub action runner have to pull an entire GitHub repository in order to compare the code against one task? No. So sparse sync means that the data structures that define the commits in Git KB have commit chains that are per document. Git has a per repo commit chain. And so you can pull just one, or you can use a glob to pull a path spec, a set of documents down to be worked on, and you can do push and pull on a document basis. Also sparse checkout, and we're just gonna see how we're doing over here. Still working, awesome. This guy's almost done, ready for us to have. You can see he did like the git KB board thing. We'll see what that is in a second. It's actually checking on its own progress. And we'll come back to that in just a bit after we kind of wrap up these, but sparse checkout. Something that's interesting that most people don't think about is like the architecture of Git is that you're actually working inside of a projection of the actual golden data store of Git anytime you're working in your code. Your real data is hidden inside your .git folder in this like strange object blob storage format. And what you do is you check out a folder, and that gives you a projection of one branch that you work within, okay? Git KB does something kind of similar in that there's a folder where all of your real data sits, but you can check them out into these little work folders. So whenever you work on something, it kind of like persists that as a file that can be read or written to directly by the agent. Why is that important? Because LLMs work best with fundamental computer science concepts. As soon as you start to put abstractions in the way, you have to train them how to do something and their effectiveness goes down. And so that is to say, you can use MCP tools to talk to your task management tool that's in a black box somewhere through an API, but that's lossy. If instead your tool set gets your stuff and just puts it into files and then says, don't worry about how it got there, go play with these files, the LLM is more effective by compartmentalizing the process into different steps. And so that's what sparse checkout means. And then of course, there are commits and therefore there's full auditability. Cool, so let's see what we got over here. So, yeah, I'm gonna kind of like talk towards the mic, but here we go. So, we'll kind of just see what got built, but we can say get KBLS. Cool, so you can see that it created these core context docs as well as a task doc, because we told it to go out to GitHub and pick the highest profile task. So, while we explore this, let's tell it to solve the task. So I'm basically just saying, like, do you understand enough about this task that we can go ahead and just solve it in a pull request now, or do you need to explore the code base? And we'll kind of watch what it's doing. Cool, so let's just take a look at some of these documents. And again, these are just part of what I call like the core pragmatic programming KB pack. And there will be other KB packs. But we can say get KB show, and it allows you to just kind of like plow through this, like exploring a markdown document. You can see this is a pattern that a lot of tools have arrived on, which is that you have markdown that has front matter at the front, which allows you, I don't know why this is not working, but front matter allows you to have structured data at the top, and then non-structured data at the bottom. And so this stuff can compile over time, and so you can take the structured data as well as hidden structured data within the body and create these graph relationships, and I'll explain how that happens. But over time, let's see. Say yes. So one thing I want to show is that we have this growing log now, or set of logs. So we have this growing set of logs now. There's our original one. Here's our second one where we have now refined this task. And we can say get KB show. And you can see that it shows the diff for how this individual task has been modified since the first creation of it. Same type of stuff. It's got this task that it's created. There are some other built-in commands that are useful, such as get KB board. Gives you an automatic Kanban board, and so we have one task, and boom, it went from draft to active. But you can imagine that this will build up. There are 7 built-in types, but it's not constrained to that. There's no performance degradation for custom types. There's some cool things where you can do, like I don't know how neat this will look because there's only one. There's only one status, but you can do different projections and like different group bys and stuff like that. So if we had other tasks with other current priorities, it would show those as well. Let's see what else we got. We got search. So I don't remember what that was. Get KB search. We'll just say auth. So auth was mentioned somewhere in there. Nice. And yeah. And so what you end up having is this like growing set of commits and things like that. But we said that it was a graph database also. Now the graph is emergent. And we just started these 2 little projects. And so we're not going to have a lot of relationships yet. But I'll just show some of my own code and show what this becomes over time. So eventually you can see, you can just have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of tasks, right? So you can one-shot and get to 7 tasks. You can use memory bank and save stuff into a Git repo and get to 50 or maybe 100 tasks. But this scales you to hundreds of tasks individually, but infinite scaling because this is a protocol. It allows you to push and pull to a server and share, okay? And we talked about graphs. So what happens when a task that looks like this, that has a parent task and then has these funny WikiLink format. If you use Obsidian, you know what WikiLink format is, but it's a way to specify hyperlinks. But in GitKB, you can have different types of WikiLinks and different types of hyperlinks. And so by default, you can link between documents, but you can also link to commits, you can link to code, etc. So I could say GitKB graph with that same slug. And we can see it pulled all these relationships out. And these relationships are like, it's a child of 49. Well, that's over here somewhere. That its parent is 49, right? This happens to be an epic, and inside of here there's 7 other child tasks. Sorry, it's like totally squished and ridiculous, but you can see that there are these links here, and these are over here, that it's a parent of these. And we can go over to one of them and do the same thing and say get KB graph. It was -1, I think, and same type of thing. And so we can see that it was a child of 438. Da-da-da. And we can also see that it references code and commits. Those are parsed out of WikiLinks that are directly in the body. So again, the graph is emergent and makes it so that you never have to, for instance, like wire up your parent tasks to your child tasks. The new way of coding is that you use GitKB just as something that's activated by a skill, and you use whatever harness you want, and you say, let's go create some tasks. And then before it creates the tasks, it goes and searches your current knowledge base. It checks to see if similar tasks already existed, or maybe it makes an incident, and you're trying to do a root cause analysis of something. It's going to go and see if a similar incident occurred, so maybe it needs to reopen that incident instead of creating a new one. But the built-in skills will automatically guide it to do that kind of stuff. So let's just see. And the other thing is, like, everything is crazy fast. So like all the graph, let's see, what do we got? Where are we? All these commands all take place in like 0.1 millisecond, right? Or 10 milliseconds. And this is with like thousands of docs in my knowledge base now. So yeah, so that is GitKB. There's other things in here that are built in, and they kind of deserve an entire additional talk, like code analysis is actually built into the protocol. So tree sitter is integrated, and you can do, so like over here in OpenClaw, you can say git kb code, oops, I can't spell with one hand, code index, and it will index all of the AST of your code and put that also into the embedded database that is free and local. You don't have to pay me for a graph database. You don't have to load a graph database. You just install it and it just runs. And now you can say git kb callers and say like get or something, and there's, oops, git kb caller. What am I doing wrong? I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong. Let's see. Symbols. This is the problem with agentic coding that I'm not sure why that's not working, but your skill files become better than you, and like even though you developed a bunch of functionality, like you kind of need your agent to do it. But the gist of it is that it indexes your code and puts that into the same knowledge base so that not only can it reference commits, but this particular one didn't have code, but maybe this one does. Yeah, so a document that has a wiki link that references code will have a relationship to it. And so, you know, in an exploration attempt to make a most perfect set of context to describe, for instance, a blast radius of the exact code that needs to be changed in order to implement a feature, it can link directly to the code. So anyway, that's GitKB. It is a distributed knowledge base protocol. It's a tool that you can add in 60 seconds to your development workflow. You use it in addition to Git. You can have a knowledge base, so you don't have to shove all your context in your code, and you can share it with all your teammates. And there's cool features that make it so you can like fan out and have a bunch of agents working on multiple tasks with work trees at the same time. And yeah, that's it. Thanks.
Awesome. Yeah, this solves many problems that I encountered every day. So thank you very much. How did you come up with this idea? How long have you been working on this?
Man, I was in Mexico with my girlfriend last year, and we were on the plane flying there, and I was like, we have to go back.
Awesome.
She's like, what are you talking about? And all I could do was tell her that I think I have an incredible idea like the whole time for a week in Mexico. And then I came home and I don't think I've had 8 hours of sleep since. But basically, yeah, I've been working on it for about a year. There's like a 3-month gap where I had to like sell a house and buy a house. Since then, yeah. What's really crazy is that recently it's just the entire internet, it feels, has also landed on knowledge bases. And like Andre Karpathy is commenting on like, you know, like LLM Wiki, and I'm like, he's freaking describing it. I'm like, shut up. But anyway, yeah.
Awesome.
Any questions? Yeah.
Let's do it for you too. So I'm just trying to wrap my head around that.
Yep.
When you were creating the wiki at the beginning, so it was running Claude Code, and Claude Code had instructions from KB on how to create this markdown
Yeah,
data.
it's just skills, right? So the first thing that I did, I just said git KB init Claude, right? And it just wrote some skills files. And so that's it. And these skills files, it's skills and commands. The commands are nice just for doing like repeated quick behavior and things like that, obviously, because that's what commands are all about. But you can see these like rules and skills. So code intelligence, this is telling Claude, instead of doing grep and find all the time and wasting a bunch of tokens, it's going to motivate it to run a little daemon in the background. It doesn't have to. The daemon will save you even more tokens. And that will make it so that that code index command has been run. And then instead of having to do grep and find, it uses those git KB symbols, git KB code. I was forgetting to write the code word. Git KB code callers, git KB code symbols. And what that is doing is instead of searching through the files that are your code, it has preemptively indexed all of your code into an abstract syntax tree and then put that into the embedded graph database. And so it can do faster searches that are more precise with fewer tokens.
And to an extent, this relies on Claude wanting to do that.
That's what but that's what the skills files are for, right? Like any LLM, if you want to motivate it to do behavior, it is probabilistic, right? And so you will be surprised every once in a while. You're like, nah, it didn't do it, right? But that's what evals are all about, making sure that your skills files have the max probabilistic result that you want. But yes, it is probabilistic.
And I guess follow-up question, since it's open source, are you planning?
Not yet, but it will be, yeah.
Or at least you make it sound like it is, because like how do you make money off this? So many people are doing open source stuff right now, which is great, but it's until you don't have a job anymore, in which point you want to get paid, but then everything is free, so.
Yeah. So it's 100% free local. A desktop app will be also free and local and will be released soon. And I will be open sourcing as much of it as I possibly can starting soon. The website literally went live while I was driving here with my Tesla, and like it was driving and I was hitting Cloudflare to make the website live.
What, your Tesla didn't deploy the website? Boo.
I know, yeah. But yeah, so I will be open sourcing the entire CLI. However, my mantra about open sourcing is like if you just open source everything, people will start like, if anyone even finds it, but people who do find it may start contributing in a way that doesn't match my vision. So I'm going to start, I need to make sure that it's 220,000 lines of Rust. It needs to be separated into the appropriate crates such that like the extensibility points are obvious. It supports 17 different languages for the code intelligence. That stuff needs to be very obvious. So if someone wants to add language 18, they just do it, And so there are a few things that need to be done before it can be open sourced. But I just want it to be free for everyone to download and use now so the feedback loop starts. Like I'm building the plane while I fly it. I love it. It's allowed me to build 220,000 lines of highly performant itself. I want people to tell me what they're building with it. I want people to tell me, like, how can I improve it to enhance their workflows? Like, I built a lot of code stuff in my years, and I really love this thing, and I couldn't code without it, but I want other people to tell me the same. So it is totally free for everyone to use. There's a Discord that's like a little empty right now. Maybe y'all could get in there and ask me questions. But yes, it will be open sourced. I'm just, like, it's all Rust, and so like the GitHub Action Runner costs are like through the roof unless I run them all on my own Mac Studio. So there's like things I need to like change in the code before I can open source it. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Great presentation. I love the idea in general. Half of my day is just getting my Claude up to speed with the current status of the code. However, I kind of question is that I can see times where this does save a lot of tokens. Are there times where it's a small feature add or something where it's just adding a bunch of tokens? Do you have any kind of metrics or evaluations around, on average, on a task of this size, you can expect X token savings or increase or anything like that?
Yeah, well, so there's some built-in measurement that I am debating whether I want to make that like totally obvious, where you can run some commands and look at what your projected savings are. But it's really just, it's so subjective that it becomes really difficult. And to be totally honest, I initially started building the code intelligence aspects because I thought that was going to be, like, it's a very useful feature, and it's especially cool how it kind of like expresses itself as a part of the graph and becomes navigable, and like even in the desktop app, which I haven't shown, it's like, it's cool to be able to see the code intelligence such that your documents can point directly to your code. And maybe that will get even more useful over time, I don't know. But I have grown to really not care about the token savings at all, and the reason is, this has enabled me to do what like the internet is now calling spec-driven development. Yeah. And so the way that I code is I iterate as a thought worker to 100% confidence according to my current harness on the definition of my current task or a number of tasks. And I'm usually trying to like make an epic with child tasks. And then I ask it like, how, like, is it possible to parallelize the implementation of multiple of these tasks on work trees simultaneously? And then it'll be like, yeah, these 7 tasks or these 3 tasks. I'll be like, great, let's continue to refine those 3 tasks to 100% so that we can dispatch them. And then you dispatch them and they go do their thing and just like PRs magically appear. I care a lot more about coding velocity than I do token savings. I have multiple Claude Max accounts, and the only thing for me is like, can I maximize my usage? Now it's ridiculous if I'm maximizing my usage because I'm burning tokens unnecessarily, but like I use a lot fewer tokens just using regular Claude compared to if I was using Hermes or OpenClaw, which is far worse.
Yeah, and they're not always, but typically less tokens also means quicker. Because of the way the model's intention is, unless you have the prompt cache perfect, it can be more tokens. I mean, more tokens could equal more latency. The concern I have is if my knowledge base is just says, oh, the file you need is here, it's like, did it save any tokens by going and say, oh, let me check the knowledge base. Oh, now let me go look at the code versus, oh, like the code is clearly at the page the person's looking at. If you have like, VS Code open or something.
Well, the way that the tasks tend to look, the way that, I don't know, I feel like this system was like revealed to me, and in general, I think we're all like part of a weird process where AI is like iterating with humanity towards something that's like the most perfect representation and use of computer science principles. So I kind of feel like this system kind of like revealed itself to me, and my way of using this system was also kind of revealed to me, which is that I make tasks that are not like overly descriptive. They don't have wasteful information on them, but they do have extremely specific information. And when I said blast radius earlier, that was a really intentional thing, which is that the tasks that tend to get to like 100% confidence have exact line references, and then the tasks themselves will even define subsets of the code that will be implemented. And then what ends up happening is I usually don't do those directly in like the exact agent where I am. I will dispatch that to a sub-agent, or I have this thing called ATC, which is also open source and going to be released, air traffic control. and I dispatch to other agents. But what happens is ATC is a little binary, and I will pipe the text from that task into standard in, so that the system prompt of that little subagent is that perfectly defined task.
That makes sense.
So
Okay.
that's how I work. Yeah.
Do you see any like emergent like characteristics? I'm gonna say behaviors, but characteristics of I noticed that now Claude is say making plans, with including a part of the plan is to use the knowledge base for X, Y, Z.
Well, I mean, so one of the things that you noted there is that like all of these harnesses are all built around forcefully making you use their ephemeral plans, and that was the problem from the beginning. Okay, so this says stop making ephemeral plans and persist this data in a discoverable, compoundingly reusable way, right? So, I mean, that was the problem. Yes, every once in a while you'll see that agents will like go back to trying to forcefully use their ephemeral plans. But also, like Claude has like hooks and rules and things like that. And they're intentionally exposing instrumentation for you to change Claude's default system prompt behavior. So sometimes like a hook can do that, right? And these different parts of their instrumentation, some of them are programmatic and some of them are probabilistic because you're just like giving prompts, right? So like a hook is programmatic. It is looking at standard out and it can just like forcibly do something. So hopefully that answers your question well enough.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I have an interesting thought about like taking this to the next level. Have you thought about using proper vector embeddings for some of these nodes and trees and
Semantic search is built into it. It's just not enabled by default.
Okay, great. And again, going even deeper into that direction, like you can do even more interesting re-ranking, not just semantic search, and then like having some sort of cadence on doing this re-ranking and all sorts of optimizations on top. Which I think will add like more power to this.
Yes.
Yeah. So great. Yeah. Let's talk more later.
Yeah.
Awesome. Any more questions?
Cool. I would love it if everyone just tried it. It's getkb.com. I have no idea how I got a 5-letter domain name. I built this thing and had already been working on it for like 5 months. And I was like, I should probably get this website. And it was there. So anyway, yeah, use it. I will give you attention and direct guidance and help if you get on the Discord and ask for help. I am just thankful for anyone who wants to use it. So thanks for watching.
Awesome. Thank you very much. All right. I think we're at the end of our presentations for today. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Okay. Yeah. Oh, there's one more presentation. Sorry about that. Yes.
All right. So I'm going to talk a little bit about a project I built with the software my company makes, Clawforce. So this was a fun project sitting at my desk one day. I don't know if y'all like cheeseburgers at all, but I wanted P. Terry's cheeseburger. And I thought to myself, how could I do this with an MCP? And built it out, and it became a little bit bigger than that even. So Mike Angstad here, VP of Engineering at Closed Loop AI. So our theme is great engineering is multiplayer. And so a lot of folks are bringing to the table a lot of really cool single player tools, how to extend yourself. And we're thinking about it from a team perspective. And so given an engineering team, how do we take a team of 12 and make them operate and act and have the velocity of 120? And so we are building a open source team-centric agentic workflow engine, very similar to something like a Paperclip or Symphony from OpenAI, except it's not a tool built by the same person selling you your tokens. And so you'll see a lot of tips and tricks we have in there, really building on the ergonomics of like maximizing your Pro Max plans. I dare you to still have session after you start using our application. And it's also free, open source and freely hosted. So anybody can go to app closed loop AI. Everybody here freely can set up an organization, work in a team of up to 3 collaboratively, which is really cool. And those aren't made up stats. So I actually pulled this from a software Pensero. I started in August. And this is the average delivery per person on our engineering team, and we're about 10x where we were in September, August. And so, Clawforce, where did this come from? OpenClaw, awesome, can do a lot of things. You hear people talking about how do you give OpenClaw eyes? How do you give it ears? How do you give it a voice? One of the big problems that was quite apparent to me is that it can't traverse into the physical world. Right? When it wants to go and do something, even if it was running on a laptop and wanted to have itself carried somewhere, it can't exactly do that, right? And so definitely a limitation in its autonomy at a maximum scale. And so the spark for this idea was really DoorDash launching tasks. So this was back in March. DoorDash launched tasks, and I was like, oh my gosh, these are just generic, have a person go do a thing for you, tasked. Of course, they surely have an API, right? And they surely are hosting a remote MCP, right? No, not at all. It was like unbelievable, the lack of technology support. And then I went out and looked at their competitors. Favor has absolutely nothing. I wanted to stay with a homegrown local company, has absolutely no API support, no MCP, besides Playwright clicking through their website. No way of accessing this. Uber has Uber Direct, which they've just launched, which is targeted technically like restaurants being able to do their own delivery systems, but I plugged that in as a provider. TaskRabbit has some functionality, but really limited API support, no MCP support, and then DoorDash has just launched this. And so a variety of reasons why it's not in a commercial interest for any of these providers to become commoditized, right? And have an API versus you going through the front end of their website where they make a lot of money on which restaurant gets put first and different discounts and all that sort of stuff. And so there's really no this human task courier system across the board. There's no kayak, right? There's no shop across these providers. What's the cheapest? How would I go out and if I want to have an idea and a group of people to do something, like if OpenClaw needed a mob for something, how would you go about doing that, right? And so I went to our app and started really jamming pretty hard. And so I'm going to go ahead and show our app real quick, just because I think this is pretty neat and it dovetails actually on the last conversation we had. So absolutely agree, could not agree more. The hardest thing and the thing you need to be doing for LLMs to get stuff right is to break work down into its small atomic pieces of work, but all of those have to be mutually exclusive and collectively exhaustive, laddering up to your original idea. And so we have a UI that's on top of something very similar. We've launched open source now a set of Claude plugins, which is a orchestration framework on top of that harness. It gives you a lot of goodies that are under the covers here. But for at least this, in my organization here, I've got this project, I've got Clawforce here, so I've got a variety of things that I've added here. You can start with a PRD and something as simple as lightning payments, right? If I wanted one of these runners to be able to get paid and embed a lightning payment for them, I could type in something as simple as great. So something is that simple, right? An idea you would have. One of the challenges, right, with one-shotting is you're going to lose a lot of context, or there's going to be a lot of hallucinations. There's a lot of filling in the blanks. The ephemeral planning, right, of here I'm going to go out and do these sort of things because I decided to. And so we provide a repo right here, which that clause, it pulls in all of the context. It builds an AST, does an investigation log, code map. Certainly nothing is as advanced as what we just saw with Knowledge KB, so I'm going to try to plug that into our system tomorrow. But it really is building just that brownfield awareness of being able to do things in the right patterns. And then we actually have, to your point about competitors and being able to get their ideas in here, you can even provide a URL right here. I did this with the actress from Resident Evil that just came out with the memory graph and banged out a PRD in the background yesterday just by giving the repo URL. So I can go ahead and click generate PRD. This will go ahead and go in the background. It's going to make a PRD for me. I have some that I already have here. You can see the quality scores, similar, like going through and doing evals to see, like, is this good or not? So one of the challenges with this Clawforce is you can definitely tell someone to go to an address and do something and then traverse to another address with something they've selected or picked up. But it's really tough for them ordering something for you. So P. Terry's actually has a background ordering app that I added, and I wanted to add Playwright. And so this is a good example here of, like, as we expand and generate a PRD, now you've got the problem statement, the background. This is also, like, human readable, but it is going down to the actual user stories and breaks down all of the stuff that you would probably never find in a Jira ticket a human being wrote ever. But actually even gives you open questions, technical considerations, really like the spec-driven development, and you can decompose those into features right there. The cool part about this as it's running, so like if I look at a decompose and I wanted to extend some Claude skills there, I can see that there's actual features that get implemented. And so we're breaking down the individual PRDs into much smaller pieces. And so you can see here there's 8 features now for adding this MCP as a Claude skill for Clawforce, which we'll get into, to talk about cost and safety guardrails, campaign monitoring and guidance. And each one of these features has all of the details you need from a, like, how you would handle things, again, very human readable. But then finally, you'd be able to come in here and do some sort of generation of a actual implementation plan. And so this is not an ephemeral task list the same way you would see in Claude Code. This is following deterministic artifact-bound workflow that's coming from our plugins, which are overridable and extensible. And so you can come in here and over time, we come back in a few more minutes, and it'll have actually broken down like a fraction every single piece of work, code command lines, in a way that, you know, a human being would never write it. And so that's how I broke down and kind of built this all out. So when we get into it, it's going from like, hey, I want to order a P. Terry's burger, and using this application, then I'm able to come back and give you Clawforce. And so the project here, if I open this up, is an MCP, and so this isn't necessarily agentic on its own, and it supports creating campaigns. And so you give it a basic requirement. It's exposed to MCP to Claude Code with skills. So when you go and interact with Claude, you can say something like, bring me a P. Terry's cheeseburger with fries and a milkshake, and it'll just do that. And so it'll actually go out, use the MCP. I'll go ahead and show some of the architecture down here. It'll go ahead and actually fan out across all of the providers that are available here. So currently it supports DoorDash, TaskRabbit, and Uber. It'll get estimates on the prices for any of those jobs that you had. So if you had something like, I have a retail store and I want to have photos of the shelves as they're laid out on Monday mornings to confirm that it matches my planograms. You could fan that out and have it go across all of these providers, goes to different geographies, and then unifies all of those results for them taking photos, for them completing their objectives, and feeds it back to you. And so really neat that there's different sort of providers here and different things that they're good and bad at. But in general, like, have already used this to have OpenClaw pick up my dry cleaning when I leave it outside my house. And so someone takes my dry cleaning to the dry cleaner, and then also when it's done, gets it at the dry cleaner and takes it back to my house because I can pay for that online automatically. It's very good at burgers and various degrees. And so the results of something like this look like, right, being able to say, bring me a double cheeseburger from P. Terry's, no onions, fries, and a chocolate milkshake. So an idea I had, a few hours later, piping that into our application that's running on my command line actually through an Electron app. So it's no different than me going to the command line except for sort of a multiple terminal management screen on steroids. Go ahead and say chocolate milkshake. It did everything in the background. I was going to meetings, going about the office, it went ahead and fanned out until it found someone that picked up the order. So they went to the P. Terry's, they picked up my order, it did the tips, the ordering, the information, all that stuff. And so the results, about 3 hours later, $22. It was a little bit expensive because they charge you full price. There's no like free delivery when you're using their API. But got P. Terry's burger and chocolate milkshake delivered to my office. Oh, the inference cost. So that's a really good one. So if I go back to the application, I would have to see, I mean, I'm on a Pro Max account, so it's as long as it's in my session limits. But yeah, that is pretty cool that if you look at, so like for example, my decomposition here, in our application, we're looking at all the tokens, cache, read, and wrote, and you can look across the project as well. I'm the only one working on this one, but if I hopped over to my company, you'd be able to see all the engineers here and their, how far they are through their sessions, which is pretty cool, as well as like how many loops they've run, their input-output tokens, and then this estimated cost is like, if I would have been using the API, that would have gone up, but did not. So pretty neat to be able to see like the gap analysis there, and then a neat piece of this in the compute target, so you're able to select a specific compute target, so you can bring on as many local compute targets as you like to. And so if you take a look at this, this is our like gateway application on this. For our office, we have a few Mac Minis that we actually have running. We also have things like Olama running, Quen. So as we hit like session limits, or even when Claude Code was down earlier yesterday morning, like we're able to pretty effortlessly go back and forth to keep time up. But you can see here, I've got 2 running jobs. We get various diagnostics here, but this is all then actually brokering those commands, and then anything that occurs, uploading all of those artifacts back up to that cloud system. So you know, anybody that was collaborating with me or working together, we could all take a look at this and actually see like in near time where everybody's at. So this plan, if I actually go in here and look at this, I can see like what tool calls are getting called. And if I look at this individual audit log, like I can open up and see the actual logs from the command line for anybody on my team, including my product manager while they're running stuff. So that's pretty neat. That's right. So it's part, this gateway application is actually collecting some of the diagnosis and being able to emit events back up, as well as just the Claude hook. So we support MCP as well for the plugin. So you can use it from the command line through the gateway Electron app, or really like most of our non-technical folks, they just click buttons in the UI. So it's in, oh yeah, so the question was, the whole point of this is to monitor team productivity. Yes and no. I would say that it is to maximize team productivity, but not in nearly as much of a big brother way as like, I'm working on something, I'm like, oh man, like Thaddeus needs to launch the GitHub secret and deploy that with Terraform before I'm able to deploy this and it'll work. I'm like, I wonder where he is on that. Instead of walking over to Thaddeus, tapping on the shoulder, having him take off his earphones and go, hey, what do you need? I can go, oh, he's running the loop right now, like that should be on average done in 2 minutes.
Mic check. So let me rewind for a second. So the closed loop was the tool you used to essentially create the plan.
Create Clawforce, yep.
And then the Clawforce, does it use the loop while running its?
No, so I can show on the command line right here. So if I if I use like just Claude in general, so here I'll embed in. So right here I've just asked like, how much would it take for 100 people to go to 100 different Walmart stores and take photos of the check lanes? And so it's using the MCP that I've got running right here. So this is Clawforce right here. So this is actually, this is Clawforce right here. And so this is going through and looking at like doing the actual calls, going out, doing the brokering and hitting those APIs to get like the costs and things like that.
So theoretically, if you wanted to have somebody pick you up a comfortable, inexpensive chair from IKEA, you could use Claude to call Clawforce to then use the closed loops to create the plan to put it back in the Clawforce?
Oh, no, so closed loop AI is just the software, just like Paperclip, that I use to manage the work to build Clawforce, the software itself. Clawforce independently is an MCP that you can stand up and is just exposed to Claude Code. And so if you're running OpenClaw or Claude Code, for example, now you give OpenClaw the ability to ask people to do things in the real world.
But I guess like I'm projecting that it seems like it would be possible if you connect the three together. It would expect its skills at infinitum, knowing what it already knows, right?
Totally.
Okay.
Awesome. Any more questions? If not, please give a round of applause. Thank you very much. And yeah, so now we are finally at the end of our presentations. Thank you all very much for coming. Again, welcome once again if you are new here. But this is what we do. We just discuss code and awesome stuff in AI. And please bring your buddies next time. We'll have more sponsored events, hackathons that are planned for this year. So please stay tuned. If anyone here need a parking validation, I have a subsidized validation coupon here. If not, please throw away your trash, arrange seats if you can, and yeah, have a great night.
Okay, you know,
please feel free to grab a full pizza home. There are full pizzas available. Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. So, but please don't waste the food. If you can, take some food home. Yeah.
Beautiful, love it. So cool. You got Mark And recent following you as well. Yes, it helps. I was at a hackathon, and these kids, I call them kids because they're like literally graduated from college. And we were looking at build was it X, and I built a tool that shows information about somebody's profile. And I'm listening, and I'm like, oh, here's my top followers, and it's like Mark and Jason, Nancy Hammer, or something. Who the fuck is this guy? I'm serious, the rest of it. Okay, cool. But yes, I thought you could get out. I will get out. Yeah.